Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. For many years now, there has been a quiet but persistent conversation unfolding just beneath the surface of mainstream discourse, a conversation largely carried by independent analysts, alternative media voices, niche financial communities, and everyday people who dared to question the official narrative around global finance. This conversation centered around the idea that the current international monetary system was unsustainable and headed for a major overhaul. Topics such as currency revaluations, asset-backed money, the end of fiat dominance, gold and commodity-backed currencies, and massive structural shifts in global finance were often dismissed as fringe or speculative, despite growing evidence of systemic instability. But now, it seems, the tide is beginning to turn. What was once whispered on online forums, podcasts, and specialized YouTube channels is now finding its way into the mainstream. Major outlets like Reuters, along with financial news anchors and well-known economists, have begun openly discussing topics that just a few short years ago were considered controversial or even conspiratorial. Suddenly, terms like currency revaluation, reset, de-dollarization, and gold standard are not only being mentioned, they are being taken seriously. This shift is profound. It signals that the broader financial world is waking up to the same concerns that independent thinkers have been analyzing for decades. Mark Zed, a prominent voice in the alternative financial community, recently emphasized this point, noting how remarkable it is that the conversations he and others have been having for years are now being echoed by legacy media and establishment economists. They are, he remarked, affirming that what was once fringe is now trending. He went on to point out how many articles are currently being published that explicitly reference financial resets and revaluations. The very concept of a reset, the idea that the global financial system is due for a hard reboot, a recalibration to something more stable and sustainable, is being discussed more and more openly. No longer confined to speculative forums or niche newsletters, these topics are gaining traction in boardrooms, financial think tanks, central bank meetings, and public news outlets. One of the major themes of this growing discourse is the move toward commodity-backed currencies, particularly gold. For over half a century, global currencies have operated without direct ties to physical assets. The end of the Bretton Woods system in 1971 officially severed the US dollar's convertibility into gold, ushering in an era of fiat money, where the value of currencies was based not on tangible assets, but on the perceived stability and creditworthiness of the issuing governments. While this system enabled significant economic expansion and unprecedented monetary policy flexibility, it also introduced vast imbalances, ballooning debt levels, and rampant currency devaluation. Now, as inflation rises, sovereign debt becomes unmanageable and geopolitical tensions strain the existing order. Many economists are revisiting the idea of asset-backed money as a solution. In particular, the notion of using gold, and perhaps other commodities like oil, natural gas, and rare earth metals, as a foundation for new currencies is gaining momentum. Discussions of remonetizing gold are no longer theoretical. In fact, central banks around the world, especially in non-Western countries like China, Russia, India, and even Iraq, have been aggressively accumulating gold reserves for years. These actions appear to be part of a broader strategy to diversify away from the US dollar and to prepare for a potential shift in the global monetary order. By backing their currencies with gold or other tangible assets, these nations aim to offer alternatives to fiat-based systems that are vulnerable to inflation and loss of trust. The concept of a financial reset is multifaceted. It can refer to a variety of interconnected developments. At its core, it suggests a major restructuring of the global economic and financial architecture. This could involve a revaluation of national currencies, particularly those in emerging markets that have been artificially suppressed or undervalued relative to their real productive capacity and resource wealth. Countries like Iraq, which possess vast reserves of oil and natural resources but operate with a currency that does not reflect this wealth, are often cited as candidates for such revaluation. The implications of a revaluation are significant. It could improve domestic purchasing power, attract foreign investment, and enable more balanced trade relationships. However, it also requires the right economic, legal, and political frameworks to be in place. In this context, the revaluation of currencies is not merely a technical adjustment. It represents a potential shift in global power dynamics. For decades, the US dollar has functioned as the world's reserve currency, giving the United States unparalleled influence over global trade, finance, and geopolitics. But this dominance is increasingly being challenged. Countries around the world are forming new trade alliances, bypassing the dollar in bilateral agreements, and exploring the use of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and blockchain technology to create more transparent and decentralized financial systems. These developments point to a world that is slowly but surely moving away from dollar hegemony toward a multipolar monetary environment. The rising mainstream discussion around these topics is more than just a trend, it's a signal of deep systemic change. When outlets like Reuters begin reporting on financial resets, or when respected economists start acknowledging the potential for gold to play a renewed role in global finance, it suggests that the theoretical has become practical. The narrative has shifted from what if to when and how. Investors, policymakers, and the public alike are beginning to consider the real-world implications of a changing monetary system. This includes the possibility of rapid changes in exchange rates, shifts in global trade patterns, and the emergence of new financial instruments and currencies. All of this underscores the magnitude of the moment we are living through. We are not simply witnessing a series of isolated economic events. We are living through a global transformation of the financial order. This transformation will not happen overnight, and it will likely be messy and uneven. But the direction is becoming increasingly clear. The world is preparing for a new financial paradigm, one that is more grounded in real value, more equitable in terms of global participation, and more resilient in the face of systemic risk. The conversations that once took place in small corners of the internet are now echoing through the halls of power and the pages of major news outlets. This is a pivotal shift, and it marks the beginning of a new chapter in global finance. The reset is no longer coming, it is already underway. Thanks for tuning into Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed, and stay ready.